Hello, everyone. This is Mojdeh from Persian Awards. Today, I have a special guest. Special guest, Leif Gregersen. Thank you, Leif, for accepting our invitation. Welcome to the show. Tell me about yourself a little bit.
Well, I'm 49. I've written and published 12 books. I have 31 years of lived experience with mental health issues. Hence, 3 of my books are stories of memoirs of my experience with mental illness. I've done a lot of different things. I lived in Vancouver for a while, where you're calling from, I understand. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, I worked on my pilot's license for a while. I was in Air Cadets. That was a very formative experience for me when I was younger. And at the moment, I've 20 years ago, I was in a hospital for a few months. And it was a very difficult time, but I'm very proud of myself because now I have a job in that same hospital as a teacher of creative writing. And so life is pretty good. I also, on the side, I work for the Schizophrenia Society of Alberta. And what they do is they go to different groups and they talk about mental health and how to deal with it and what are the signs to watch out for. I'm actually, I think Tuesday, I'm going to be giving a presentation to the Edmonton City Police recruit class, something I do quite often. And they really enjoy when I can go in there and give them some good insight into how to better do their job and deal with people with mental illnesses.
Great. And Leif, tell me, where have you born and in which city did you grow up? And was there anybody to motivate you to be a writer? And is it something that you realized that you want to do it when you were in like high school, or something that somebody motivate you? Just can you explain a little bit about that for us?
Absolutely. Well, for starters, I now live in Edmonton, which is a fairly large metropolis for Alberta. But there's a small city north of Edmonton called St. Albert, and that's where I was born. I was actually just talking to a friend about how I was the second baby born there in 1971. And 25 years later to the day, I was in charge of the whole hospital as a security guard because they were shutting it down. So I grew up in St. Albert. Then I spent time in Vancouver, and then I came back to Edmonton. I always had it sort of on the underneath that I wanted to be a writer, and that started from a very young age. I actually didn't, well, my dad was a very literate man, although he came from Denmark, and he didn't have basically any formal education in Canada, but he took English classes, and he would read to us when I was very young, and he wouldn't read children's books or comic books. He would read to us things like Robinson Crusoe or William Faulkner, and it was just magical, and the house was filled with books. And my mother also was a very intelligent woman, and she had sort of a routine while I was growing up where she would go to bed about an hour before my dad to read, and then we would have our time to go in there, and she just totally pushed me towards the love of books and reading. As far as my own desire to write, it came early. Before I started school, before I could even write words, I would get blank notepads and I would draw pictures of spaceships or soldiers or things like that, just crude pictures, or action figures from my favorite TV shows. And I would make them into stories. And then later on, when I did learn how to read, I would make them into comic book stories. And what I recall is I would write new comics almost every day, and I'd post them on the bulletin board. And the bulletin board in my, I think, grade 4 class it got so full, the teacher said, "No more comic books." And that was a bit discouraging, but I got over it. Funny enough, later on, I actually had an opportunity to write some scripts for comic books that I'm still hoping are going to be produced. Another thing that happened was when I was in grade 2, we were supposed to do sort of a craft idea for Father's Day. And I drew a picture of my dad, and I put down the poem, "Roses are red, violets are blue, coffee is strong, and so are you." And that was the first poem I wrote. And early on, I knew I had a gift with sort of being able to know words and to rhyme words. and to pick words out of the sky and stuff like that. And further on down the road in my life, I ended up writing 4 books of poetry, teaching numerous poetry classes and workshops. And it's just, it's a thing of passion. Now, I mentioned about air cadets and I mentioned about going to flying school. Flying was an amazing experience. You know how beautiful Vancouver is from the air. You get up there and there's the snow-capped mountains, and there's the city and the harbor and the sea and the island, and it's all just there beneath you. And I really thought I had found what I wanted most in life. But soon after, because of my mental illness, I was unable to pass the medical to become a commercial pilot. And I was devastated. And I went through a transition period, and I went home to Edmonton, and I didn't have much money, but I saved up and I brought a typewriter. And it's kind of funny to think, I don't think they even make typewriters anymore. It's all computers, but I had a typewriter, and I would try to fill a page with like a journal log kind of a thing, at least every day. And I started writing stories about, or sort of fictional stories based on real events. And then I decided to start writing a memoir. And many years later, almost 20 years after that, they ended up as this book, Through the Withering Storm. And this was the first book of 12 that I've come out with. And I'm currently working on a couple more with editors, and things are going really well.
You mentioned that you were here in Vancouver to be a pilot, but like something happened, like a lot of like challenges, that you went back to Edmonton and you decided that, okay, let's just find another path that you like, and you continue to do that.
Yeah.
How did it ended up with the book, and you got all of the opinion for the book? Was it that transition kind of like idea for you? Was it the time that you realized that, okay, so I can do this better?
Well, it took, my first book took quite a while to put together. But the point I think I forgot to mention was that as I started writing poems, as I started writing books, and I shared them with people, and people were like, "Oh, you're a good writer," all this stuff. I found a passion for writing that beat out anything flying ever did for me. And really, it was just, it was a lot of self-taught things. And then later on, I started taking courses, and I still take courses about writing, and university courses in the humanities field and things like that while I'm teaching. So yeah, it's a two-way street. You learn, you teach, you learn, you grow.
Yeah, great. And tell us about, have you won any kind of awards with your book? Tell us about your accomplishment.
Well, I won awards for my shorter works. The first contest I won, we have an amazing bookstore here called the We Book Inn, and it's they have 2 locations. They used to have 5 in Edmonton and 1 in Calgary. Slowly they've been closing down. But at the We Book Inn, you can go and get just about any kind of book, and it's half the cover price. So you end up saving quite a bit if you buy your books there. And I just loved going there. And one day they had a contest for their 40th anniversary, and I entered it. And I must have inflated someone's ego, because I wrote about how much I loved the We Book Inn. And a couple of months later, they called me back. "You won the contest," so that was great. Another thing I did was what was that? Oh, there was a contest called the Writers Weekly 24-hour short story contest. And how that works is they take up to 500 applicants. They all pay $5 US. And then on a certain day, always a Saturday, at about 11 o'clock Mountain Time, they send out a paragraph to give you an idea of what to write your story from. And then you have, also a word count. And then you have so much time, 24 hours, to get a story back to them about that touches on the prompt, to show you didn't just write it before. And lo and behold, one of the times, against 500 competitors, I won first place, and it was a $300 US prize, which was really helpful. And so that was achievement number 2. And then we also have a wonderful thing. I don't know if it's going to start up again soon, but I'd really like to see it happen. But we have a wonderful thing called the Edmonton Story Slam Society. And this is where you go and you pay $5 to register as a reader. And they take up to 10 people with stories. If there's more, they draw out of a hat, and they only use 10 people. So then you start, they draw names out of a hat for the order of when people go up. Then you say a 5-minute story, and people judge it with cards with numbers on. And halfway through the show, they pass the hat again to everybody in the place, and they all put $5 in it. And then whoever has the highest marked story gets the $5. And I've won that 3 times now, which is something I'm quite proud of. Yeah, but nothing huge yet. I'm still hopeful. I'm still entering a lot of contests.
That's great. Like everything happens from the first step. So it's just winning is winning. It's just something that you accomplish.
Yeah.
Leif, I want to ask you that what is the process if anybody wants to write a book and they want to publish it? What is the process to find a good publisher to support your book and just publish it, and then all of the readers there can just have it? What is this process?
Well, my own process with most of my books has been to self-publish through Amazon Kindle Direct. And the amazing thing about that is, now it's a little difficult at first, but what you do is you upload your book files, you create your cover, you put the words in you want, you make sure everything's all set up. Then you order a sample copy to make sure it went through okay. If you're happy with that, at that point they charge you for 1 sample copy. And if you're happy with that, you can order as many more copies as you want at a large discount. And then you're expected, to sell them yourself. But the books are also put onto Amazon. And so I've done this, and I've gotten my books into local bookstores and into Kohl's, Chapters, Indigo, things like that. And it's a little more of a difficult process. But one of the things I found was, I've actually started a thing recently where people can contact me, and I will give them up to 5 hours of consultation to help guide them through the process of self-publishing a book. But I should probably talk more about a conventional publisher. It's actually quite a bit harder to get a conventional publisher, but there are a number of advantages to it and some disadvantages. One of the disadvantages of a conventional publisher is they sort of take control, and you get a quite a bit lower commission on each book sale than you would on your own. It can be quite difficult to get them to accept work. I remember I was close to getting a publisher last summer with the U of A Press, and they wanted it to have a developmental edit done of it, but they liked it, which was actually really incredibly wonderful. So for the past year, I've been working through the manuscript and redoing everything and going over it. And then there's a chance that the U of A will take it. One of the things I suggest that's absolutely essential is local libraries, as well as universities and some colleges, will have a position known as a writer in residence. And they're an experienced writer, and they're paid by the agents, by the company or institution they work for. They're paid by them to spend half their time on their own projects and the other half of their time helping the general public. And I went to see one about a book I had written called Green Mountain Road. And I went to see the writer in residence at the U of A, and he helped me a great deal. And he was very friendly and very kind. And we actually made contact after he was done with that. And we became very close friends, and he became my mentor. And not to say that anyone could go to a writing residence and they'd become their mentor, but if you have a writing mentor, somebody with established experience, it puts you a great deal further ahead. but also it's just good to know that it's a free resource to go to these writers in residence and show them your work, and they'll go through it with you, and they can offer a lot of advice from that point. The first step usually towards publication would be to get an agent, but your work has to be fairly far advanced for that. You can't sort of just send a couple sample chapters and say, well, I'm going to write the rest later. You sort of have to have a complete work for them. And they know the publishing industry, and they know which publishers want what things. Unfortunately, my first book, again, Through the Withering Storm, I had a literary agent, but they sent it around. I really wasn't very satisfied with their service because they only sent it around to 6 publishers, didn't hear anything back, and they said, sorry, we can't place it. And that was when I made the decision to self-publish, which actually I feel has been a good decision to an extent. With self-publishing, with the books I have, basically when I can sell my own copies, I make fairly good commission, and in combination with the work I do for the Schizophrenia Society, I quite often go and I'll give these presentations to students or to groups or whatever, and they're usually really receptive to buying at least a few copies off me, and it's made me comfortable. I make a living off of it, and I really enjoy doing it.
That's really good. So in your opinion as a writer, what is exactly the challenges of translation from, like, you write in English, but there is a lot of writer that they want to translate their book to English, or they want to translate the English book to other languages. What is the challenge about a translation in your opinion?
I don't have an awful lot of experience with translation, but there's a couple things I do know. One of them is I really wouldn't suggest trying to use an automatic translator. They're not good enough. Another thing I do know is the effort it takes to translate something and to put it into a new language is equal to the effort that it takes to write a book from scratch. And basically, if someone translates a book, they're entitled to a good share of the royalties and everything, depending on whatever contract. But there's ways, for struggling authors. Something I do when I need services. There's 2 things. One is there's a website, I think it's called Fiverr, Fiverr, and it used to be that a bunch of professionals would give their services for $5, but now they charge a little more. So sometimes when I've had a book and I want to get it transferred to an ebook, I go to Fiverr and I look for people who do that sort of thing. And for a low cost, I can get that completed. I think they have translation services as well. There are official translation services, but I don't recommend going with them, like some of the larger ones, the companies. I don't recommend going with them because they wouldn't put as much literary effort into the book, I feel. I mean, unless you're writing a nonfiction book that these are the details, this is a manual, this is what has to happen, then it might be advantageous to go through a company. What I found was really helpful was to go to the nearest university. So in your case, it would be UBC, in my case, University of Alberta, and simply run an ad in either their online or in their print newspaper, asking for a student who's comfortable with translating, say, Spanish to English or Farsi to English or things like that. And it's kind of important to draw up a contract if you can, which can be, you can draw up a contract. Sometimes there's lawyers who will, student lawyers or even lawyers who are volunteering to help people with low incomes, who will draw up a contract for this sort of thing, and then you have it signed and notarized, and then you go ahead and you do your best. You do your best, and you hope your student does their best. And I guess the problem would come in where it comes time to have the editing done for what the student translated for you, and but I think that would basically keep it at a low cost. You have to, as a writer, you really have to work with the pennies and nickels to make the dollars come in, you know? And so I feel that's a good way to do it. And then again, once again, if you contact a writer in residence, maybe they would know someone who has translated a book or something like that. You know, so get plugged in, you know, and join the local writers groups and the Facebook writers groups. And
Leif, you talked about local writers, you talked about publishers and what is the challenge about like a really famous publisher, and you decided to go for a self-publisher. In your opinion, how can a writer get the global market? Like, is it any specific subject, or is it what is exactly that the writer needs to do to get the attention of the global market?
well, it's a bit of a difficult question. One thing I know is if you work in English and Spanish, you're covering a large amount of the globe. Of course, if you can work in Chinese and Pakistani, that's another huge market. But I would say it would be best to start with English and Spanish translations if you were going to go the translation route. But to get a global market, I think what a person has to really do is they have to learn and to practice as much as they can to be as skilled a writer as they can. And what I feel makes a skilled writer is daily writing. I joke around. It took me 20 years to get this book to print, and I like to say it only took me 20 years to become an overnight success. But the fact is, you just have to keep learning and keep improving. Write every day. I encourage people to get some type of job that has to do with writing. I mean, you could be editing an online magazine. You could be volunteering for a website such as 101words.com, where they write a 101-word story every day, and they ask for people to come in as volunteer editors. Get yourself going, and if you can't write a poem, write a journal entry and put it on an online blog, and build your audience that way. And what it comes down to building an audience. And making a presence on social media definitely helps. I think Goodreads is a really good way to connect with a lot of readers worldwide. You can go in there. And you can set up a giveaway for a small price. And everybody who joins the giveaway, you email them later for the book launch. And you connect, and it's just very, like, as far as a global market goes, then you would want to be published by one of the big publishers, and they would, you would assemble a team, and really that's just somewhere I've not gone yet, and somewhere I'm not worried about going. Like, if you want to reach the global market in a small way, have a website, talk about what the subject of your book is every day, put a new thing up. And these will get emailed out to everyone who agrees to follow. And so then you get onto Goodreads, and you get a presence on Goodreads, and make as many Facebook friends as you can. And when you self-publish, as I did, you sort of do get a global market. But it's not, anyone anywhere in the world can go to Yahoo Japan, Yahoo whatever, and they can purchase my books. There's not Yahoo, sorry, Amazon Japan or Amazon UK. My books can be purchased worldwide, but nobody's aware of them worldwide. So I have to rely on random internet searches. But if you were self-publishing, I would say to try and do, if you're self-publishing and you wanted to get global, I would say start with a few radio shows. A lot of radio shows, especially public access. We have a university station here called CGSR, great station. I actually worked with them for a while doing some stuff about interviewing local authors. But get interviewed by them. Contact the producer of the evening news and see if you can get interviewed on a evening chat or whatever, as I did on the A channel here in Edmonton, and build from there. There are, within Canada, I know there are a great deal of grants through the Canada Council, and some of the grants you can get will pay for travel to go across Canada and to sell your books. And I've done some local tours where I'll go around Alberta and make appointments with all the libraries and the high schools, and go and visit them, show them my books, just tell them, this is kind of a timely thing for young people, and mental health is getting a lot of coverage in the news. Are you interested in buying some books for your library? And quite a few times I would. And that was something I really liked, because for like 2 months after that, I kept getting the checks every day from all the places I had been to where I had sold books. And I think, it would be a really good thing. Someone who had a desire to be a writer, it depends on what age they're starting from. But if they're young, not like, say, still in high school, go for trying to get into a creative writing program. And seriously consider getting a Master of Fine Arts, because then you can teach in colleges and places like that. And you can write on the side, and you also learn wonderful things about everything to do with writing. As far as maybe somebody who has made a decision they don't want to go back to school, just sit down and just start writing, and get the pages out, and show it to people, and get people knowing that you want to be a writer, and that, and get to that writer in residence. And that's probably about the best advice I could come up with.
Leif, where are you right now, like in writing, and what is the book that you're writing? What is the book that you're working on? You mentioned that you are just doing some teaching and helping a local writer, but what is the book that you're working on right now?
The book I'm working on is called Voted Off the Crew, and it's a series of short stories set in Edmonton mostly, and just different sort of adventurous kind of thriller, things like that. There's a story in there about a young man who gets caught up in the world of bare knuckle boxing that I'm quite proud of. There's a story drawn from real experiences about me being asked to drive a U-Haul across the country full of books. I have a friend who's a book hoarder, and he had me do this in real life 3 times, to drive across with this U-Haul full of books, and then unload the books, and then take the bus home. And it was a horrible experience. But BC is just so beautiful, I wouldn't pass it up again if I had the chance. But I drew a short story out of it, and something I like to mention to people who want to write short stories is take a few elements in your story and make them real events, but mix them around so they aren't the same. So you're not stealing from anything, so you're not offending anybody. Just if somebody said a phrase to you, and there's this phrase, I have a friend, I see him on the bus quite often, and I've known him for many years, and he's rough around the edges, but he's very intelligent. And I just remember one time he said to me, "You got to face the day, or you're going to live the night." And I just thought that was so brilliant. And so I added that into one of my stories with his permission. And, you take a little reality and you take a little fiction and you put them together, and it makes your fiction more believable. And it also, I feel, makes the stories much more interesting.
Leif, is there anything that you want to add to the audience that they are watching you and I haven't asked you? Is there anything else that you want to share with us?
I don't know. If anybody's interested in my books, I'd love to pass on some information about how they can get them from me, signed, or from Amazon if they wish. I think the biggest thing is just to sit down and not to censor yourself. Don't worry about offending anybody. I've got this box in my closet, and I haven't looked at it, but it's full of my first maybe 3 years of writing. And I would never send it out because it's just practice, sort of, but it's very precious to me. And I would say, get a box like that, a box you can carry with you if you move, you know, or, you know, something you can keep, and fill it with your love, your passion, your joy, your hate, your everything, and put it all in there in poems and stories, and just dive in. And I'd also like to recommend, there are a number of books out there that are really good for helping people to learn to write. One of them, and it's funny because I'm not a huge fan of this author, although many people are, but one of them is Stephen King, and he wrote a book called On Writing. And it's absolutely brilliant. I'd strongly recommend it for people. One of the things I think I forgot to mention was that when you sit down to write a story, or sit down to write a story or a novel or anything like that, think back to your high school days of essays and things like that, and remember how you used to structure an outline, and how you would have points and then subpoints and everything. And if you can write a really good outline with details, once you're done that, the hard work is done. And then you rattle it out. But I have to warn people, not a lot of people understand that, not everyone understands that when you do something like write a short story or write a poem, very rarely are you just going to write one draft. What I do, I have these notebooks everywhere, and what I do when I sort of have an idea that's starting to gel in my head for a story or something, I start brainstorming on paper and just put down different ideas. And then once I start to get a sense of the characters, I start to write some of the dialogue. And I don't always go back to that, but I do, if I write an outline, I do go back to it, but I don't always go back. But it's just something to get your hand moving, your brain moving. And once you sort of get a little bit on paper, it gets so much easier to go further.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your experience, and thank you for joining our program, Leif. It was really a pleasure to talking to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for watching Persian Awards. This is Mojdeh with Leif Gregersen from Edmonton. Till next time with the next writer. Have a good one. Bye-bye. مژده هستم از پرژن اوارد، جوایز فارسی در ادبیات، موسیقی، هنر، سینما و بیزنس. برای مشاهده ویدیوهای جوایز فارسی، کانال یوتیوب ما رو سابسکرایب کنید. زنگوله کنارش رو هم بزنید تا شما اولین نفری باشید که برنامه‌های ما رو می‌بینید. ما رو در پیج اینستاگرام از این بالا فالو کنید تا همیشه جدیدترین خبرهای پرژن اوارد اولین نفر برای شما برسه.